If there's one thing that I've learned from making my last video about Life is Strange, it's that Life is Strange fans really love the first game and have absolutely no consensus on any of the other games. When it comes to the rest of the franchise, it is a total free-for-all. That being said, we can all agree that we have very divided opinions on double exposure. Now, I talked about double exposure in my last video, but really that video was focusing more on the state of the franchise, particularly how Deck 9 was handling it. Deck 9. But y'all seem to really like what I had to say about double exposure, and due to overwhelming popularity and demand, I've decided to do a full-on roast. Heavy spoilers for the entire game, for the entire franchise, and just letting you know, this isn't going to be a scene-by-scene review. I am not going through the entire game start to finish, but I replayed the game and I took notes. So I'm sitting here with 30 pages of notes and 6.5 hours of gameplay. So we'll see just exactly how long this video ends up being. So let's just get right into it. I'm just gonna start off in chapter 1, Max's line reads, particularly the voiceover in her head. Now, it's all but confirmed that they recorded the game in a completely linear fashion, and I do think that is really backed up by Hanatel's voice acting in chapter 1 versus the rest of the game. I want to say, just like my last video, this is not a critique or me shitting on Hanatel. I think she is fantastic. I also know that she hasn't done voice acting in a while, and I think because they recorded this in a linear fashion, she is a little rusty in episode 1, but I blame this more on direction than anything, because when she's talking to people, she sounds great, but when she's doing the voiceover lines in her head, she sounds like this.
Ah, yes, Abraxas. Those guys really get around. Looks almost like a face. Hate to bring an unappreciative audience to a trespassing.
And it's so prevalent that I actually put together a supercut of all of the weirdest line readings.
Hail Satan. Edgy. Guess these haven't been greased in a minute. Don't ever talk to me or my sons again. I'm guessing that's the right room. Yes, this is the angle I need. Gotta love any piece that can make a snowy tree look somehow cozy. No way. The soup future is in my hands. Oh man, I want to get on the bad pickup line board. Ah yes, the telltale signs of a 10 coffee all-nighter. Shutterbud 420's YouTube tutorial made fixing you seem so much easier. Never met the woman herself, but her bust feels like an old friend somehow.
You see how her voice sounds so weirdly forced?
Never knew the woman myself, but I feel like I'm friends with her. Oh, what is this? Oh, this is really something.
It's not Max's register. That's not what her voice sounds like. That's not what really Hanatel's voice sounds like either. They're very forced, like it sounds like the words are being forced out of her mouth.
The premier journal for the discerning gorehound. Even waiting for Yasmin is a luxury experience. Guess everyone's too literary for YA these days. It's a shame. I was so looking forward to being terrorized by Saint Nick's shriveled mutant sidekick.
And it's unusual. The other thing that I noticed immediately is throughout this entire game is there is a lot of accidental dialogue overlap. Max has her own lines in her head. People are saying stuff to her. She's saying stuff to people, but there are just way too many fucking times in this game. Multiple voices are speaking at once and you can't stop it.
Is something wrong?
Why are you working so hard on an Assassin's game you aren't even a part of anymore? They got you. You're out.
God.
Something to bring you back to the beginning. Imagine that. Amanda recommends
I should be able to break the
ice now. I can work with that. Not that having more to talk about. Oh, geez, Amanda has a huge family. I should be able to break the ice now.
Too many things are being activated at the same time, and it's so bothersome. I already have ADD. I cannot follow a game where people are always talking over each other accidentally. Moses is an incredibly boring, sanitized character, and I feel like he is a real missed opportunity. What's bothersome about this game is it feels like they played everything so safe that it really comes off as a bad faith form of representation. It's kind of offensive to make a character this fucking bland. There's so much you could have done with this series. This series has always been about taking risks. But what's nuts about this game is, even though on the outside it's wrapped up like something bold and new, it is actually maybe the safest by the numbers entry in the whole franchise. And that is massively disappointing. His character is written in such a timid, bland way. It's not giving anything. It's just not giving. Okay, so Moses has hidden the camera that Max needs to find in a safe, but not a safe as in the literal term S-A-F-E, but rather S-A-I-P-H, which is a constellation, and he's hidden his prized possession in a safe, meaning that Max has to decode this puzzle where he has made a projection of a constellation on the wall, and then she has to find out which star named Safe, S-A-I-P-H, lines up with where on the wall the camera is hidden. Did you follow that? No, because that is fucking convoluted nonsense. You know what that reminds me of? That is giving me real Rise of Skywalker sword that you have to hold up in the air and it shows you where the map to the thing is. It doesn't make any sense. The idea here is supposed to be that he has hidden the camera in a safe place. I hate this. I hate that it's like a misinterpretation of wordplay that has somehow accidentally become gameplay. He's hidden it in a safe, but then when he says safe, Moses is like, oh, I thought you meant safe as in the constellation, which is definitely where I keep my secret things. And somehow Max is supposed to interpret that as it's hidden inside a vent on the wall where the constellation that he drew lined up with the star or the constellation or whatever. That has to be one of the dumbest moments in this game. And what I hate about it is you just know that they thought they slayed with this. They thought this was so clever. They thought this was fucking gold. They were like, see how damn smart we are? It's not safe, but it's like actually like astronomy because he teaches astronomy. You'll find a recurring pattern in this game is they really didn't know what to do for gameplay. And they clearly didn't have any solid ideas of what the puzzles would be. So it's just a lot of nonsense like this. I made a critique that didn't go over too well in my last video about how I don't like Before the Storm, and I still don't. I absolutely hate it. Sorry. I'm sorry if you love it. Like I said with the Life is Strange fandom, the only consensus is that everyone loves the first game and every other game is super up for battle between fans. I'm not here to make you feel bad if you love Before the Storm. However, I don't think you can deny that 80% of the gameplay is fetch missions. Go and get these dishes for me. Go and get this bottle for me. Go and get this paper for me. Go and get this for me. Go and get this for me and bring it back to me. This game is very guilty of that too. Having to find the camera is just a very boring fetch mission, and they tried to make it interesting with this safe puzzle, but it really is just convoluted nonsense. So in playing the game this time, this is my second time playing it, I decided to do everything differently. I wanted to see what kind of differences, if any, I would get doing things the exact opposite of how I did the first time that I played. So when Max has to hide from this police guy who is also he's just one of the worst characters in this game. And we'll get to him. We'll get to the fate of his character in a little bit. But in playing the game this time, she has to sneak past him. And I decided I'm going to fail every prompt in this gameplay. I'm going to try and do everything wrong just to see what happens. And y'all, I found the most shocking, ridiculous, nonsensical piece of gameplay in the entire game right here in chapter 2. A lot of you probably never experienced this because you probably never failed this prompt or intentionally failed this prompt. A very annoying thing about this game, like a lot of games, is it has some kind of an action prompt, or you'd almost say quicktime event, where you can't fail it. You literally can't. The characters will just pause until you do it, or it will not allow you to fail. Even when you try to fail, it'll push you through and you'll somehow succeed. When Max tries to sneak past Alderman, I tried to have her get caught. And y'all, when I got caught, I went back in time and got to do it again.
What the hell?
Shit. Did I just... Okay, let's try this again.
Max, who canonically does not have her rewind powers for pretty much all of this game, suddenly develops her rewind powers for exactly 2 seconds so that you don't fail the prompt, so that you can sneak past this guy. They actually animated this into the game. I was in shock when this happened because this makes no sense. And that's a running theme throughout this game. You're going to hear me say this so many times, but this makes no sense. This makes no sense. Why couldn't they just animate a moment where he goes, "Hey!" and then it flashes to dark and then it opens up again and you have to sneak past him again? Instead, when he catches you, you rewind and you go back 5 steps so that you can do this prompt again. That is legitimately crazy. That is a game-breaking moment. She should be like, whoa, I have my powers again. I have my rewind powers, but I can only use it for small trivial things like sneaking past somebody. The lack of sense is just grilling me. Then, Max learns she has a new facet of her world-swapping powers when she swaps out the telescope, and that's a huge deal. She literally moves giant pieces of matter from world A to world B or from world B to world A. Now, is there any kind of ceremony when she realizes she has this huge power? Nope. Does that power come into play for the rest of the game? Not really. It's basically she does it here, and then she does it when she swaps out the ice to save Safi. It is a huge, massive power that could also be a fascinating and really fun piece of gameplay. You literally have to point at something and then you have to swap it. You have to send it to the other world or you have to bring it back. But no, this game doesn't do that. Instead, this game gives you the sludgiest, slowest, most unfun thing to do with your powers, which is you have to run to the back of a room, go to a portal section, go into the other universe, come back, grab something, then run to the back of the room again, go into that portal again, and then come back to the front of the room and use that object. It is literally just a bunch of endless fetch missions. It's just literally you're in world A. Oh, go to world B to grab a frickin' stool. Okay, run to the back of the room, change what universe you're in, come to the front of the room, grab that stool. Great, you grab that stool. Now I want you to run to the back of the room. I want you to swap out what universe you're in, and then I want you to run to the front of the room, and now you have a stool. Super fun, right? Isn't that so fun? Isn't that just great? Like, oh, it's really, really, really fun how you have the ability to swap between universes and you do nothing with it except boring fetch missions. You don't even really play this game. It plays you. It doesn't let you fail a single prompt, and it just pushes you really hard through the story to the point where you're not really doing anything as the player. And it just feels like you're watching a really bad movie. So just like the one version of the bar is now missing a stool that they would have needed to put up those decorations, and now Living Moses is missing an entire telescope, Max's powers are literally fucking up everybody else's shit, and she doesn't seem to reflect on this at all. She doesn't feel bad. The game doesn't paint this stuff as a negative, and she never corrects her actions either. There's a moment where you're given an opportunity to lower Loretta's grade, which, by the way, is also a wildly left field moment very early in the game where you've only had one interaction with Loretta, and it's her asking questions about Safi's death for her podcast, which I know that comes off as really insensitive, but that doesn't make Loretta like a bad person or an evil person. And in my gameplay this time, I decided that I'd treat everybody the opposite of how I did the first time. So in my first gameplay, I was very not nice to Loretta and I was suspicious of her. In this one, I decided to really go along with everything that she says. And I realized that she's not really a bad person at all. And she actually is a pretty decent journalist. So the fact that early out of the game, you just get this opportunity to screw up her grade. And then as soon as you screw up her grade, you realize that you've screwed up the wrong worlds, which means that you punish somebody who didn't deserve it at all. And all Max says is, oh, wrong Loretta, whoops. And then she walks away. Max uses her powers to make bad choices. And she immediately remarks on that, and then she just walks on. Talk about shitting all over the point of the first game, which is that these powers are a curse and that you can't just use them for your own personal gain and that you can't punish other people in using your powers. But Max does that so many times in this game. She steals somebody's stool from one world to the other, so now the other people just can't put up their decorations and she doesn't put it back. It's a bunch of things like that. And I hate it. How does this game not pause on the fact that Moses just walked into his office to find his telescope that he just spent hours and hours and hours building is all packaged up when he had just been gone 5 minutes? How does the game not actually sit on this beat? How is there no consequence for this? Explain that to me. This game really doesn't make any sense, and it feels like the game makers knew that, so they just decided not to linger on any one idea for more than a few minutes. As soon as something big like this comes up, the plot literally just walks away from it and never comes back. Literally, Max walks out of that room and we never come back to this. Alderman asks if he can trust you, and I've realized now that I've played the game twice, whether you say yes or whether you say no, and this is touted as a big decision. You have those moments where it comes down to a pause and a split screen and you have to choose left or right, meaning that it's a major action that is going to have consequences. When he asks if he can trust you, whether you say yes or whether you say no, this does not factor in at all. I was hoping that if you say yes, maybe you'll get him on your side and he can help you. Maybe if you say no, he'll make trouble for you. No, doesn't matter. Neither of those things matter. Doesn't matter what you say to him. It literally doesn't matter what you say to him at all. So you also have this deluxe edition cat nonsense where if you bought only the most expensive version of the game, you find a cat and then you can name it, you can choose its color. And then I discovered in my second gameplay, you can also find its original owner. This is just late stage capitalism culture at its worst. Making us pay extra money to get this tiny little bit of storyline that doesn't really matter and is so superfluous, it should just be in the main game. I have no issue with this cat little side story thing, other than the fact that it's completely meaningless and just another basically cosmetic thing that adds nothing to the story. But I think it's just fucked up that you got to pay extra money to experience this. I mean, if you take all of the cat stuff throughout this entire game and put it together, you're talking maybe 10 minutes of content. Max says when she's in her house, I guess I haven't been home in the living world in a couple days.
Oh, wow. I guess I haven't been home in this world for a couple days. It's like a time capsule of the day Safi died.
And that statement only furthers the idea that there doesn't seem to be a second Max. And it really gives me the idea that this world that she starts jumping into after Safi dies seems to be created by Max. And it's a world where there is no other Max. And obviously that doesn't make any sense. So the big elephant in the room for this game, for me, is we never get the answer to where the fuck is the other Max. It's two universes and everybody exists in both universes, except Max doesn't seem to have an alter. And again, talk about weird, confusing moments where they seem to bring up something and then brush it off immediately. You know, there's a moment where she sees herself and we're like, oh, finally, we're getting the answer at the end of chapter 3 to other Max. Finally. And then no, it's not the other Max. It just turns out that's Safi and that she can impersonate people. I swear, I feel like this was never implemented in the game. And right when it happens, when she turns from Max into Safi, I feel like somebody just wrote that in right then and there, and then they decided to go with it. Because the whole game, you're wondering, where is the alternate Max? And then they do this crazy thing where they show you there is another alternate Max, but then no, turns out that's Safi. And where is the other Max? Don't worry about it. We're never going to come back to it. We're never going to answer that question, which is the game developer's way of saying it's immaterial and it doesn't matter, because if it did matter, they would have to answer for it. So to the people that wrote this game, there's two universes, but it doesn't matter if there is or isn't another Max. And this has to be maybe the most frustrating part of the game. It's not that they don't answer the question because it's a mystery that we're going to come back to, maybe even a later game. No. It's more just like they wrote themselves into a corner and they realize this is a question that's going to need an answer. So just like when someone does a bad essay where they didn't do their research, so they just start bullshitting, they just avoid it. They just avoid answering that question, and they avoid answering that question for the entire game. And it kills me because it doesn't make any sense. The only theory that I've come up with that makes sense, but this is giving way too much credit to the writers, is that this world, this second alternate universe, was created by Max from her grief, and it's almost not even an entire real world because there is no other Max in it. My theory, and by theory, I don't mean I think this is what the game intended. I just mean it's the only way that I can make sense of it. But I also don't believe that this is what's happening in the game. It's just, in my opinion, the only theory that can make some sense of this entirely irrational, senseless game, which is that Max created this world. It never existed before. And whenever she jumps into it, that's the only time the world is existing, which would make sense because then we never have to account for what's going on when she's not there and why there is never a Max there in the other world, because there's only one Max and there's technically only one world. And then if we take this as canon, then I can believe the ending of the game a little bit more. I can believe that this is a game where the two worlds merge because the alternate world only ever existed for a few days. And it's basically just two versions of what went down. A timeline B that started existing after Safi died and then stopped existing a few days later, however long this game lasts. Okay, so end of chapter 2. This incredible twist of Max holding the gun in this photo and how that is legitimately never resolved absolutely kills me. I've played this game twice now and I still don't have the answer of, okay, so then who shot Safi and why? Max didn't shoot her. Max is finally given that opportunity, but she doesn't. So what the fuck happened? I don't know. We'll never be able to make sense of it. This is like the two biggest things in the game that if you think about it for more than 3 seconds, just destroys the entire canon, is where is the other version of Max? And also, so who actually killed Safi? Was she ever dead? And if she wasn't ever dead, then what even was this story? What was the impetus for the story, for her developing these powers and swapping between universes? Like, what? Okay. So at the end of each chapter, just like in every game, it shows you the worldwide percentages of what choices people made. Looking through the choice percentages in double exposure, it is clear to me that there is a lot of little choices that it's statistically showing the majority of viewers didn't do or didn't see. But looking at the percentages, seeing through all 5 chapters, how many optional things it showed like 70% of players, 80% of players didn't do, including me, because I played this game twice now and I still missed so many things. It really seems to me that these options are too hidden. It's my second playthrough and I still kept missing a bunch. Max did not help the guy get the bathroom key. Max did not sign up for platypus facts. Max did not reflect in the North Quad. Max did not leave the therapist card for Abraxas students. I somehow missed all of these on my second playthrough. And looking at the percentages, most people did. This has never happened in the other games, especially with the moments of reflection or moments of Zen, depending on which game. They seem to change the nomenclature for that. God knows why. The moments of reflection are some of the best parts of these games. It's a really special thing. And then also, you know, lots of licensed music, so much money going into those moments. It's insane. that they make them really easy to miss in this game because they're just throwing money away. Let's say they spent, I don't know, $20,000 on one of these songs, the licensing for one of these songs. If 80% of the players aren't doing it, and it's not because they're skipping it, it's because they never saw the area where you're supposed to sit down and have this moment of reflection. That's literally just taking $20,000 of your budget and throwing it away. These things in all of the other games, they're really hard to miss. They're basically built into wherever you're going in the game. They're built to be pretty unmissable. It really bothers me that even in my second gameplay, because I made a note to really try and find every moment of reflection. In retrospect, I should have actually looked at the choice chapters as I was playing the game to try and not miss them, but I still missed at least 3 or 4. And that bugged me a lot because, I may not play this game a third time. It's just, this has never happened in the other games. It just seems there's some really ineffective gameplay going on here. So this Alderman character, he is just a bad actor. Poorly written, poorly portrayed, and no surprise, developers just threw him away mid-game. Literally. He touches an alternate version of himself, or I guess not even an alternate version. I guess it's a past version. It doesn't make any sense. Oh, and then also Max gets a major choice, whether to pull away from him or try to help him. Well, guess what? I did both versions of that. And in both versions, he just disappears into thin air. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you try to help him, and it doesn't matter if you pull away. In both versions, he just gets sucked into oblivion, and then he is quite literally never mentioned again. This whole thing where Alderman just blows up into nothingness, that never comes back. The game, like I've said, has this incredibly messed up habit of showing you these big things and then immediately moving on from them and being like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. That thing that happened, that's in the past. That was 2 minutes ago. Like, stop thinking about it, you dumb gamer. It almost feels like the game is, there's like it almost feels like gaslighting. That's what that's it, isn't it? That's the fucking nail on the head. This game gaslights you the whole time. It's like, so there's 2 universes and there's 2 versions of everybody in that universe. And then you, the gamer, are like, so there's 2 versions of Max? And the game's like, no, you dummy. And then it's like, okay, so there's 2 versions of Alderman. And when they touch each other, it creates this cosmic thing where he dies. It's like, oh, so we're going to come back to that and explore why that happened and talk about whether or not Alderman ever existed or if they can save him. And the game's like, no, why would you think that? Stop thinking about that. Anyways, here in this scene, the prompt to refill mugs comes after you look at all the photos. But then why does Max say, I need to look at everything in order? And then because it tells you to go get coffee, only on my second playthrough did I realize that the prompt of I need to make this make more sense. This bit's hard to explain. Okay, when she has all the evidence laid out in front of her, Max tells you, after you look at everything and interact with it, she goes, I need to make this make more sense. So you, the player, are like, oh, I already looked at everything, but I guess I gotta look at it in a different order, or maybe I've missed something. But then it just gives you a prompt to refill your coffee. And when you do that, you're done. You don't have to make the evidence make sense. We don't come back to this. It literally makes you look at all the evidence. And then Max goes, there's something that I'm missing. I need to make it make sense. And then it literally gives you a prompt on screen that says, make it make sense. And then before you even do that, you go to get a refill of your coffee, and then the scene is just done, and we don't come back to it. So I guess you didn't have to make it make sense. And is that not the theme of this whole game? Make it make sense. Developers are like, how about no? Okay, anyways. The cinematic of Safi and Max at the tornado scene is fucking incredible. I can't remember who it was. Somebody on the team. I think it was the director or maybe the narrative director who got let go. I read a post where they were thanking everybody for their incredible work. And one of them remarked upon how they in particular wanted to give credit to the cinematics team for this game. And I have to wholeheartedly agree. The cinematics in this game are insane. They're so good. It's the only part of this game that fucks hard. It's really, really, really great. And, you know, credit due where it's due. I know you might think this is just an entire video of me shitting on double exposure, and maybe that's because the name of the video is a needlessly thorough roast of double exposure. Shout out to Jenny Nicholson for giving me that title formula. But credit due where it's due. The cinematics are gorgeous. A lot of the ways the characters are animated is beautiful. When we do get the music, it's really good. And I think most of the actors are really well cast and trying their absolute best. Not all of them, but pretty much all of them. So this scene at the tornado, this is arguably one of the most dramatically intriguing ideas this series has ever come up with. But they had absolutely no idea where they were going to take this idea. It is a left field balls to the wall idea. But the problem is you have to back that up. You have to have reasoning for it. You have to make it make sense, to quote the game itself. And it's just fucking crazy that they basically just retcon this moment into not happening at the end of the game. I don't understand that. They bring up this idea, and this scene is so crazy and so dramatic, and it's so good, and it's so well animated, and it gave me chills. But then it just, I guess by the end of the game, it just never happened. Again, when I say that this game feels like it's gaslighting the player, I frickin' mean it. Why are there snowdrop flowers around where Safi died? This is one of those many ideas that the game shows us and then just never comes back to. I looked this one up online and I searched, Reddit and stuff because other people were asking. And basically the best that people could come up with is it's just proof that this area has some supernatural stuff going on, that it's been particularly affected by the universe jumping. And honestly, that is not a good enough explanation because there's clearly meant to be some sort of symbology in why where Safi died, there are snowdrop flowers where her corpse laid. You don't just put things like that in a game randomly. That has meaning. That's gotta mean something, but it is never explained in the game. And like I said, I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but it brings up an idea and then it just never comes back to it. It really feels like I'm not kidding when I say part of me really thinks that this game was made like a game of telephone where like one writer wrote the first 10 minutes and then the next writer wrote the next 10 minutes, and then another writer came in and wrote the next 10 minutes. They're just improvising an entire game from start to finish. And, so many hands have run through it that I'll bet you whoever wrote the ending of the game probably didn't even know that there was a sequence where they found snowdrop flowers where her grave was. I feel like whoever wrote that idea obviously wasn't in charge of the full story because it's just one of those things. Again, it's one of those things where we bring it up and we never come back to it. It's like, oh, okay, you have snowdrop flowers where her grave was. That must be important. And the game's like, why would you think that? Why would you think that's important? Stop thinking about that. This game is so lacking in love and attention overall, but the thing that really kills me is you can tell in some places this game is made with so much love and so much care and so much effort. And it gives a lot of beauty in these small little moments. But as a whole, absolutely fucking not. And that bothers me so much. That's part of the reason I had such conflicted feelings about this game, is there are some tiny moments that are beautiful, but the rest of it is slop. This game really holds your hand with Max narrating when you're at the observatory that you need to go into the other timeline just to prove Moses' point.
All right, there's a chance Moses will believe me. First, I gotta hop over to the other timeline.
It really bothers me that on top of giving you a very boring game mechanic where you just switch from world A to world B, every time you need to do it, which you're not dumb. If you've done it once or twice in the game, you now understand its mechanic you're going to use for the entire game. Max can't stop narrating to you, I need to go into the other timeline to do this. I need to go and grab that chair. I need to talk to other Moses, blah, 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 blah. Imagine in the first game, if every time you had a conversation with someone, every single time Max went, maybe I should rewind time and have that conversation again. Imagine if she said that every time. I know she says that a few times, but not every single time. In this game, it just can't stop telling you what to do next. And it's insulting because this is a simple ass game. This game is not hard. It's impossible not to get through this game. Like I said, you can't even fail a prompt. Oh my God, and then it makes you jump back again and again and again to do this whole bit with Moses. This game has the most boring, repetitive gameplay loop. They came up with the most brilliant idea for gameplay and then make you do almost nothing with it. I do think it's deeply fucking odd that they chose intentionally to write a story about Max being a teacher at a university rather than just a student, and then refuse to ever show her in her classroom or teaching or anything that could have been a really interesting parallel to how the first game opened, because the first game opens with her in a photography class being taught by someone who ends up being a serial killer. It would have made so much sense for this game to start with showing Max teaching her class and being a great teacher. You know what's fucked up is in the conversation with Gwen, I realized the ultimate villain of this story really is Lucas. He stole a student and a young woman of color's actual real life story, then made it his own. And because of that, Maya killed herself. And then Safi went on this whole crusade and Gwen got her book canceled because it contained incendiary content. And I just think it's fucking insane that Lucas doesn't properly get the punishment that this narrative deserves. He should be in jail by the end of this game, but instead he just tells Max to fuck off, and I guess he gets fired. It doesn't even confirm if he gets fired. Oh, I hate it. Max goes,
Gwen's bringing up Maya? Time to pay attention.
Max, were you not paying attention before? So we don't get to see Max in her classroom or her office if she really has one. However, we do get, instead of that, having to go through Moses's office, having to go through Gwen's office, having to go through Lucas's office, and having to go through Yasmin's office. We never get to see Max do her thing, but for some reason, the game is hyper obsessed with making you go through every other teacher's space. And they're all boring. Does that sound like unique, fun gameplay to you? No, it doesn't. You don't have to answer that question. Max commenting on the Christmas CD and then turning around and seeing Yasmin saying time to have a delicate conversation is a perfect example of the tonal whiplash this game gives you at almost all times.
My dearest Annabelle, I write to you from the front lines to inform you that the war on Christmas has been lost. Okay, time for a delicate conversation.
She'll say something in her head, some kind of silly voiceover, and then she'll turn around and be like, time to talk about death. How are we supposed to side with Safi in the end when she shoots her own goddamn mother? I mean, we'll come back to that. That's just a passing thought while I'm having this conversation with the mother that she shoots. Literally everything that Vin says is creepy. Everything that he says is creepy and sexualized. I want to smack this guy so hard in the face. I cannot believe that he is a romance option.
Wow. You know Maya's name.
A commenter on my last YouTube video said that allegedly Vin was added as a romance option midway during production. And you know what? That makes so much sense because he is definitely not introduced as a love character, and it makes absolutely no sense, and it's disgustingly disrespectful to the character of Max. Thinking about how her last romance option was Chloe, and then in this one, it's a really pretentious frat bro dude who sexualizes every conversation and has slept with everybody else in the game. This guy has slept with Safi. This guy has slept with your student. And now what? You're gonna sleep with him? What the fuck? More repetitive timeline gameplay going back and forth between the living and the dead world. For the Vin and the Diamond conversation, super boring. Two characters you don't really care to spend any time with either. So Max's actual romance option is a clout chaser who made a false statement about a student that committed suicide so that he could get a job. People were worried that they'd be disrespectful about the Chloe relationship, but just thinking about how this is someone that they chose to romantically pair Max with is actually just so fucking disrespectful to the character of Max. It's like they're trying to say that she has absolutely no taste or common sense absolutely wild that Deck 9 apparently hated the character of Chloe, did not like her as a romance option for Max, but then decided midway through making this game to create this romance from fucking scratch. Max makes a comment about how Loretta is good at her work, but she just wishes she would use her powers for good. However, we've never actually seen any of Loretta's work being used for bad. We hear a snippet of one of her podcasts with Amanda, and Amanda's talking about some kind of a toilet prankster. If anything, it's a very lighthearted, humorous story, the kind of podcast fodder I think people would love at a university. It doesn't really make sense that Max has it out for Loretta, because if you actually look at the game, Loretta hasn't necessarily done anything bad. Again, fucked up character choices for this game. It's so frustrating to see Max waste her energy on a character like Loretta instead of properly aiming it at Vin and Lucas. You really get the sense that whoever wrote this completely misunderstood every character. Having to find this key under Lucas's photo is such a random moment of gameplay. And can I bring up the fact that this is the third time in 3 chapters that you have had to find a character's key, literal key, to unlock something else that is in the exact same space. And it's so pointless. You're already in that space where the person has the thing that you have to find. So you have to walk 3 feet over to find a key and then go back to that thing. And it's not gameplay. This is giving me 20 years ago game vibes. Like literally every character in this has a fucking key for something that is hidden 2 feet from where the key is. I love that Lucas completely stole this young woman's work. And once he fully published the book, he decided to keep the original incriminating manuscript inside of a writing award that he got. This has just got to be one of the dumbest threads that the game decides to pull on. Everybody in this is very stupid. Lucas has got to be the worst criminal of all time, and somehow he still doesn't go down at the end of this game. So now we're back at the Snapping Turtle, and Diamond and Mitch are sitting in the exact same spot that they were in the last chapter, wearing the exact same clothes. And this is such a lazy fucking game. I cannot stand it. These Polaroids that we keep discovering are obviously from some kind of third timeline, some third universe, but this is never clearly explained. It's one of the other biggest plot holes. I said that there were 2 huge plot holes in this game. This one is the third. I keep forgetting how many. I keep forgetting. The question that I just keep coming back to is, what does this narratively serve? All of these Polaroids that you have to find that are not from the living world, not from the dead world, but some third alternate world where everything is really nice and goes everyone's way. We already have 2 entire universes at play here, with 2 completely different choices of how everything could go. What is the point of throwing in Polaroids from some potential completely unmentioned third world in which things are really nice and apparently all the best things happen in this world? What is the point of showing this? This is narratively terrible for the game. This just further convolutes things to the point that you really just can't give the writers the benefit of the doubt. It really feels like they just threw anything on the wall and was like, what sticks? You know, Gwen might actually be the only really lovable new character in this game. And that's kind of fascinating because she isn't exactly a kind or really patient or very forgiving person. But I also think that really works because her character's been through so much, and it sounds like she's someone who's faced a lot of unfair persecution in her life and has worked intensely hard to get where she is. And it is so fucked up and incredibly unfair that Sophie decides to try and burn all that down. She might also actually be the best queer representation in this game, and that's sad because her character gets shit on more than anybody and is not really given a ton of love in this game. She's not even included in the final scene where Max brings all the main characters together to explain things to them. For some reason, she's left completely out. That's somebody who really deserved answers, don't you think? It bothers me that even if you turn down Amanda romantically, she still makes the same lines about how you're her type, and then you still have to go on this fake date with her. That straight up doesn't sit right with me. That actually feels kind of creepy. I especially think this is stupid because in the end, if you did romance Amanda, she actually calls you out for taking advantage of the situation in the other universe. The date with Amanda is maybe the only scene in this game that feels like a classic Life is Strange, imaginative spectacle. It's the only part of the game that got a huge grin on my face, actually. And that's sort of sad because it's about 5 minutes in a 10 to 12 hour game. And also, if you chose not to romance Amanda, it kind of just makes this scene weird. So arguably one of the best scenes in this game also only works if you make a certain decision in this game. And if you don't, it plays out the exact same way. Your choices just don't matter. They don't matter at all. I know people have always spoken about the illusion of choice in Life is Strange games, but when you compare it to Life is Strange 2, where there are 4 main endings that you get based on all of your cumulative decisions, this just ain't it. Anyways, this scene is about as close to perfect as the game gets, and it's 5 minutes in a 10-hour game. Okay, I just gotta say, in this version, I decided to turn down Amanda romantically. So in this scene, when Amanda says,
"Besides, tonight, the actual love of my life is here,"
I swear to God, I thought she was going to look over and point at Krampus. Like, I really thought she was going to say, oh, the actual love of my life. And then she was going to point over and we were going to cut to a close-up of one of those fucking Krampus guys. I don't know what that says about me or my kind of brain, but honestly, I think that would have been 100 times better and funnier than her pointing at Gwen. And I wish they had done it. Would have been the highlight of the game. Here we are with Max in the woods doing the same gameplay loop again. They rely so heavily on going in and out of the worlds just to get from point A to point B. It's just a really lame crutch for the game to rely on. Look at this set on the water. This is beautiful. This is the kind of stuff I want to see in the game. And we're only here about 15 seconds. It's a shame. Again, you can't fail prompts or quicktime events in this game, which is absolutely ridiculous. It feels like the developers just couldn't be bothered to animate a 2-second fail scene where you fall through the ice or something. Okay, so I'm looking at my notes just finishing chapter 3, and I said in my last video that it's really chapters 4 and 5 where the story falls apart, and a lot of people are on the same page about that. But in playing the game a second time and seeing how I have over 20 pages of notes on just the first 3 chapters, I'm really seeing how when you look at the full picture and you go through the game a second time, everything about this game is flawed from head to toe. The faults are too numerous to point towards one crack in the foundation. In chapter 4, we have this indoor-outdoor glitch. The first time I played the game, I thought I just made a mistake because I was sure I had chosen one outside outfit and a different indoor outfit, but then I wasn't wearing either of the outfits that I picked. It shows you a stack of 8 costumes. So let's say if you choose the second one on the left for indoor, and then for outdoor, you choose the last one on the right, it is going to give you the indoor and outdoor option of whatever one was the last one on the right. In other words, these frickin' outfits, these cosmetic options that you had to pay more for, you don't even get. It glitches. It gives you the wrong outfit that you choose. This game is just so bugged. Like, on top of the game just making no sense, it is also ridiculously buggy.
Lucky for me, one question clearly takes priority. How do I protect the Sophie I have left?
So if Sophie disguised herself as Gwen and dealt those drugs to students, then where exactly did Sophie get drugs? Is Sophie a drug user? This is just one of those many details that's never discussed. Again, it's kind of a gaslighting thing where it's like, oh, okay, so she dealt drugs to students. Does she do drugs? And the game's like, why would you ask that question? Stop thinking about that, dummy. Let's move on. I want to know. I think it matters. I think it speaks to Safi's character, because if she's not someone who uses recreational drugs, then that means that in a pretty maniacal way, found a drug dealer, went and bought drugs from them, and then disguised herself as Gwen, and then set up a whole thing where she dealt drugs as Gwen. That whole storyline doesn't make sense, by the way. If your university teacher came up to you and tried to sell you drugs, come on. This doesn't follow through, especially because it's Gwen. When you look at Gwen's character, you're like, does that sound like something she would do? Whatever. Anyways. What I will say about Safi is they give her really wonderful, devious expressions, and it's great for her character. Again, the animation in this game, I think, is top tier. The micro expressions for characters is great. A lot of Safi's character, the way that she's animated, really speaks volumes to her character. When Safi asks, do you think you're capable of hurting me? Instead of you giving the option yes, no, it's presented as no or yes, which is just another slip that the developers clearly want you to always pick side A, the left side. Obviously, it should just be listed as a yes-no answer, but instead it's listed as no, yes. The game does that a lot. You'll notice that it really does always want you to pick the left side. Hate it. What is the deal with this pose that Amanda is always doing? I know that this is nitpicking, I know. But seriously, have you ever seen a human do this pose, ever? This sequence where you have to screw with the projector is really boring. The idea of being able to travel between two worlds is so exciting, but we're only using it to press some buttons while somebody on the other side tells us what buttons to press. Oh, and can you fail this little mini game? No, you can't. There's a bug in this chapter where Diamond's mouth doesn't move when she's supposed to be speaking. I got this bug the first time that I played it, but I was playing it on release day, so I gave it the benefit of the doubt. Here we are 2 months in, and several times in this chapter, Diamond's mouth doesn't move when she's supposed to be talking.
That was wild. So that's why you needed Moses, huh?
Yeah.
Man, the fact that Lucas was the department chair after doing that to a student.
I need to know, did you experience this bug? Because I feel positive this must be a bug that lots of people are getting, and it's just insane to me that they haven't fixed this yet. It's pretty big. These default smiling NPCs in the crowd when Safi drops that truth bomb are really telling in terms of the time and care and attention that went into this game. Like, she's up here exposing a man for his terrific crimes, and we just have stock NPCs smiling their heads off. I really hate how everyone's just standing around in the bar waiting for you to interact with them. They're literally doing nothing. They might as well be T-posing. In my second playthrough, I found out that you can actually reconnect your cat with its original owner, and you have this text exchange with them. This has to be the most subdued answer ever to a cat owner who's also a huge cat lover, literally did a podcast episode about it, finding out that their missing cat has been found. This character that Max is texting with seems mildly pleased at best. It's absurd. Why even include it if you were gonna phone it in this hard? I find it massively disappointing that the hurricane in this game does not look any better than it did in the first one. The Sims in this game are not great. It's not on par with the animation of the rest of the game. And if you're going to make this huge thing like this storm, which we're also deeply familiar with the idea because of the first game, how long ago was the first game? And this one, it looks the exact same. Do you think they just copied and pasted the assets from the first game? Probably not, because the first game was done by Don't Nod, as we all know now. Not Tech 9. How come in this part when Max says, Safi, wait for me, she looks up and there's no hurricane? This is just a continuity error, right? How sad is it that the only time Moses feels like he has real strong character is when he's being possessed by Safi? It's clear the actor who plays Moses is a really great actor, but I feel like they don't give him any good lines. Max actually mentioning the Vortex Club in this scene and its similarities to the Abraxas Society doesn't really help this game. It only points out how inane the whole Abraxas storyline is. It goes nowhere. It's really stupid and trivial. The Vortex Club had meaning and purpose, and you go to like a whole Halloween party. In this game, they even talk about things like how there's going to be this big election and stuff. Do they do that election in this game? No, they don't. When Max has a moment of reflection in the bowling alley, you see subtitles of Safi talking, but you can't hear it.
Safi?
And I was listening to this with my headphones on, and her voice is actually just not there at all. I think this is a straight up error. There's this line where Max says that Reggie could use a hug, and Vin says, or something.
Looks like he could use a hug.
Or something.
Ew, Vin. Time and a place. This guy's disgusting. I remember the first time that I played this game, I looked around at all the look prompts in the motel and immediately just felt exhausted. Chapter 5 has a lot of really jarring black pauses. Every time you go through a room, it has a really shitty cut. You know, these games aren't super graphic heavy either. How are they not able to seamlessly transition between these scenes? Earlier in the chapter, Safi was expressing remorse for shooting her mother, and then when we come back to reality at the end of the game, she's taunting her mother and clearly doesn't have any remorse at all. The writing for this game, when I say that it's inconsistent, I mean, come on. She shot her mother, and for a moment, she seemed sad about it, but then at the end of the game, she's definitely not. How are we supposed to possibly side with this character? How could the game possibly give you the option to side with Safi when she shoots her mother and leaves her for dead? I can't wrap my head around that. So again, with the big options, refuse or agree. Every single option in this game, it wants you to choose the left side. You know, it should be yes or no, agree or disagree. But instead it's no or yes, or disagree or agree. You know, what side do you think they want you to choose? And again, the game's already stuck on the left side. It's already telling you to choose it. I also have no idea why in the end, when you're returning the cat, you give her to Loretta. I'm just going to assume because they didn't want to have to animate a whole new person, because they cheaply threw in this whole cat DLC thing. It's very stupid. Moses says go easy on Safi, and I just can't wrap my head around that. She shot her mother. She got Gwen fired. She basically committed some mild child abuse on Lucas's kid. She permanently damaged his relationship with his child. She went and bought drugs and then dealt them to other people as Gwen. Why would Moses say go easy on her? When I think about this line being placed here at the very end of the game, it really makes me think, who is Moses in this game? And why is Moses in this game? He's very boring. You being Max, your relationship is already with, like, the whole crux of this game is your relationship with Safi, not your relationship with Moses. It's also established in the game that Moses and Safi are already close and that you are not as close with either of them as they are with each other. So as far as I can understand, because there's also a moment where Safi says that Moses is off limits in terms of all the people that she impersonates, which honestly, weird line to draw, in my opinion. She's so savage about everything, but oh, she won't impersonate Moses. Literally the most bland, nothing character who would also be the easiest to impersonate because he's so non-reactive about anything. But when I really think about it, I realize the only reason Moses exists in this game is in a poor, failed attempt to humanize Safi and make her more likable. Because Moses is supposed to be this grand voice of reason, I suppose. To me, he's more just like a fence sitter. But he's like, go easy on Safi, she's okay. And it's like, well, yeah, maybe because she did nothing to you. And I also think that just would speak volumes about Moses if he was a real person, because at the end of the day, the only reason he doesn't have negative feelings towards Safi is because she never did any evil against him. Again, She shot her fucking mom. It's just, I can't, why would he say go easy on her? Moses is such a non-character, and I really realized in playing the game a second time, the only reason he is here is the game developers trying to shoehorn in the idea that Safi is maybe not that bad because she has a friend who likes her. Wait, why are we even touching on this Abraxas election thing at the very end of the game? What the hell does that have to do with anything? What bearing does the Abraxas election? Why do we touch on this with less than a minute of the game left? Who gives a shit? Amanda's saying that she feels like she dodged a bullet by not dating Max is just rude. Amanda is a pretentious, kind of unlikable character. I noticed that she seems to talk down to Max a lot. Like she makes fun of her for saying old sport. And she has this line where she, in Max's grief, she's like, oh, we're doing like goth baby grief or something. And it's really rude. And then Vin talks to her the same way. Max's two romance options are not particularly kind to Max. That makes me really sad. So your two endings with Amanda are either she's mad at you for double dipping your romance, if you will, or she's glad that she dodged a bullet. Yikes. So in other words, no matter what, you can't please Amanda, I guess. So that's it. That's about all that I have to say. I'm glad that I kept it brief. In all seriousness though, thank you so much for tuning in. When I made my last video about double exposure and Deck 9, it was the first video I had posted in 2 years. And I was just riffing. I just had some thoughts and feelings that I really needed to get out there. And I thought, I'm going to post this and then my brain will be complete. My brain will feel done about this idea. And then I won't have to worry or think about double exposure again. But then I got hundreds of comments and they were so fascinating and so engaged. And it made me feel like such a part of the Life is Strange fandom. And I realized there is a lot of room on YouTube for content about this franchise. And I just want to say I am so thankful that it resonated with a lot of you and that you guys have accepted me for making commentary stuff about the game. I want to make more. I really do. I would love to do a full retrospective on the entire franchise. That would take a very long time. But if that's something you're interested in me getting into, please let me know in the comments. I'm going to be utterly exhausted editing this video because I have to cut down 6.5 hours of recorded gameplay. And I know that once I am done this video, it's going to be a very long time before I come back to ever playing or talking about double exposure again. Until then, I hope you have a great week. I hope you have some fun. I hope you get some rest, and I will see you all very soon. Thank you.
What is this? Safi is in danger too. I just got her back. When I woke up, Safi was gone.